It's my honor to welcome all of you to the White House, and I want to thank all the mayors, the elected officials, the community and the environmental leaders who've joined us. 40 years ago this week, America celebrated the first Earth Day. Earth Day was founded by Senator Gaylord Nelson of Wisconsin, and what began as an environmental teach-in is now celebrated in more than 175 countries every year. Because of the leadership of that generation, we've made remarkable progress in cleaning up the air we breathe, the water we drink, and in protecting our natural resources. Today, we're driven by new challenges. America is deeply dependent on foreign oil. Our climate is changing as a result of our carbon emissions, and in order to mitigate the considerable risks of climate change, the world must transition to a sustainable energy future. This will require nothing short of a new industrial revolution. Now, I left life as a university professor where, I have to describe this to you, I never took more than 2 or 3 days vacation for 25 years, where I had strict orders to be at home by 8 p.m. for dinner. And a couple of times each year, I would simply forget. I would look up, and it was suddenly 9 o'clock, and I was in the doghouse that night and for the next week. So it was a job where I truly loved it. It was my best hobby. And I left that life to focus on solving the energy problem because I firmly believed that this is the defining issue of our time. For the sake of our economy, our security, our environment, I believe America must find and fund new solutions to the energy and climate challenge. And our future prosperity may well depend on whether we lead or follow in this new industrial revolution. So we're fortunate to have a president and a vice president who understand this moment. Through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, this administration has made historic investments in clean energy and jobs for the future. We're expanding the use of clean energy sources like the sun, the soil, wind, water, and the atom. We're working to make our electric grid smarter and more robust. We're jump-starting research and development in new generation of potentially game-changing technologies. And we're making bold investments in energy efficiency. For the next few decades, energy efficiency will be the most effective tool for reducing our carbon emissions. And it's the best way to reduce energy bills for American families. We can create tens of thousands of new jobs, and everywhere you turn, from lighting our homes to running our appliances to powering our cars, there's an opportunity to accomplish the same task in a more efficient way. Energy efficiency is just not the lowest hanging fruit. It's the fruit that's lying on the ground. Now, one of the biggest opportunities to save both energy and money is giving our homes and buildings energy efficiency tune-ups. About 40% of the energy we use in America is in our homes and buildings, and most of our homes are more than 30 years old. And this is an issue I take personally. Whenever my wife and I move into a new home, I seal the air ducts, the leaky windows and doors, and put insulation around the hot water pipes. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, I crawled around in my attic and put an extra layer of insulation up there, really on my hands and knees. Now, the reason I do this is because I want to experience firsthand what needs to be done, and I have to confess the other reason I do this myself is I'm cheap. But you don't have to be an energy efficiency nut or cheap to want to save money or energy on your bills. And that's why the announcement the Vice President will make today is so exciting. As the Vice President Biden will discuss, we're funding new and better ways to upgrade America's homes. The programs we're supporting are taking innovative approaches and may become models for other communities. In fact, we're impressed and inspired by the proposals we've received. 40 years after the first Earth Day, there's clearly a groundswell of support for finding ways to improve our lives, protect our planet at the same time. Now it's my pleasure to introduce someone who is uniquely able to bring together the different pieces of the energy puzzle. He's as comfortable in discussing energy security with members of the National Security Council as he is discussing the benefits of insulation with customers at Home Depot. And of course, he's a true friend of the environment. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Thank you. Thank you. Sit down. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please, please. Secretary Salazar, Carol Browner is here, Secretary Ray Mabus, Ben Cardin. I miss seeing you guys every day, Ben. Dennis Cardoza, I'm told Emmanuel Cleaver's here. I see Marcy's here, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur. Ed Markey, who has gained his congressional PhD on this issue. I don't know anybody who knows more about it than he does. And we also have the Mayor Michael Bell, the Mayor of Toledo here, Mayor Phil Gordon, the Mayor of Phoenix, and Mayor Michael McGinn of Seattle. And you're all welcome, and I'm sure there's other very distinguished guests here as well that I have overlooked, and I apologize. Let me start off by saying, and I mean this sincerely, I was a senator a long time. As a matter of fact, as I left the Senate, as Ben may remember, the Senate historian came in and said, thinking to me he's going to make me feel better, he pointed out that only 17 senators in American history ever served as long as I did. I could feel my heart sink into my stomach. Said my father were here, he'd define that as misspent adulthood. But all kidding aside, I've been around a while. I served a long time with Gaylord Nelson, who he and his wife Carrie were great friends. There were real pioneers back in those early days when I got there, talking about the environment. I was put on the Public Works Committee when I first got there, and the first recommendation I made is we change the name of the Environment and Public Works Committee. And Mayor Jennings Randolph, or Jennings as he liked to be called, told me that if I made that recommendation again, I was off the committee. You think I'm joking? I'm not. There's a lot that's changed, But, and I expected when I took this job, I'd have some real opportunities to impact on the formation of policy. One of the things I didn't expect to have the opportunity to work with such a tutor, and I'm not being solicitous. To have an opportunity to work with the Secretary of Energy on something that I cared a great deal about when I was a senator, to have a man of Secretary Chu's caliber and his depth of his knowledge and his commitment has genuinely been sort of an ongoing tutorial for me. And I want to publicly thank you, Mr. Secretary. As an old joke goes, the Secretary's forgotten more about this subject than I'm ever going to know. But I am as passionately committed to this transition he refers to as I think anyone, as is the President. You know, I hadn't planned on doing what I'm about to do today, but today's announcement by General Motors that it's paid back its TARP loan in full, is a huge accomplishment. The President of the United States took a lot of heat for that effort to keep that company alive while it was transitioning. And I would just like to point out that I am proud to be associated with a guy who saw the necessity to do this, and this has even exceeded our expectations. We've worked hard to help turn around the nation's auto industry and give the car companies a chance to be viable without government assistance. And we helped GM, we helped out GM so that they could retool, so that they could become a leader in the 21st century. And we know that building energy-efficient cars with better gas mileage and cleaner emissions is going to be a big part of us being able to succeed, not only the auto industry, but also succeed in our quest for a better environment. Today, GM paid back the loan in full, 5 years ahead of schedule, and now GM is in a better position to make what the market demands, energy-efficient vehicles for a cleaner world. And that leads me to Earth Day, the reason why we're here today. I also want to point out, I want to thank, by the way, Lisa Jackson, our EPA administrator. She couldn't be here today, but we all appreciate the tremendous work that she is doing, having once again, we now have again an environmental protection agency again. And a happy almost Earth Day to all of you. I say that because tomorrow is actually the day that officially marks the occasion. But the truth is we're here kicking off an entire Earth Week, and I hope our administration has kicked off an entire Earth administration Over the next few days, officials from across our administration will participate in more than a dozen events to celebrate Earth Day. We're getting everyone in the administration involved. And the day before Earth Day, we kick off a week for an administration that literally for every day, it's Earth Day for us. Because this implicates every aspect of our country's self-interest, from foreign policy to economic policy to environmental policy to healthcare policy. This impacts on every aspect of what kind of country we're going to leave our kids. And 40 years ago, when Gaylord conceived and celebrated the first Earth Day, the world looked pretty different. Some of us can remember the public health and environmental catastrophes that propelled the Earth Day movement in the first place. The Cayuga River literally catching on fire from all the oil and dump trash that was in it. Days of heavy smog in New York City, so thick that people actually are dying from being unable to breathe the air. The list goes on and on and on. Our planet was sick. It's not healthy yet, but our planet was sick and in need of desperate help. It's still in need of real help. Because of Gaylord Nelson and millions of Americans like some of you that are here today who joined him, we began to make things a little bit better. 40 years later, the first Earth Day, the people of the first Earth Day celebration would look around and look out at all of you, and they'd be very proud of what all of you have done. They'd see recycling bins in your houses. They'd see business spending more money to make their facilities more energy efficient. They'd see men and women heading to work to build and install wind turbines and solar panels and other components for the new energy future. They'd see an administration building on his legacy, Gaylord's legacy, protecting and restoring the Great Lakes, the Chesapeake Bay, the Gulf Coast, designating millions of acres of wilderness, saving 1.8 billion barrels of oil by reducing greenhouse gases by raising fuel efficiency and emission standards on cars and trucks, pulling us on the right track and by doubling the renewable energy that will be generated in this country. Since the beginning of the environmental movement, we've been trying to transform the way we use energy and reduce our dependence on foreign oil and fossil fuels, to tap into the vast untapped renewable energy sources and to use energy more efficiently. The fact is, we've been trying for 40 years, and we've made some progress. But we're now poised to make significantly greater strides, in our view, than ever because of the unprecedented investment in the Recovery Act and the leadership of the President and the Secretary of Energy. Even before we took office, the President and myself and our economic team planned to use parts of what we knew had to be, we didn't name it the Recovery Act then, but we knew we were going to have a Recovery Act. There were significant parts of that Recovery Act to make investments that would create good jobs today, but while planting the seeds for great industries of tomorrow, with clean energy being at the forefront and the heart of all of it. The world already is transforming, as the Secretary said, to a new energy economy. And the question is, are we going to lead it, or are we going to continue to try to catch up? We're going to be left behind. We need to catch up. With around $80 billion in clean energy investments, the Recovery Act is the largest single investment in clean energy in our history. If you just took that piece out of the Recovery Act and passed it as a standalone bill, it's the largest investment ever made in the history of the country in clean energy. But we're not just doing this with government funds. We're using government to provide the seed money to grow private industries. And some of the initiatives you mayors have going with the private sector in your communities is a model for what we should be doing. $23 billion in renewable energy generation and advanced energy manufacturing, which will likely leverage more than $43 billion in additional investment. $2.4 billion in battery technology, matched by another $2.4 billion in private capital to help build energy-efficient cars of the future. In January of 2009, there were 2 advanced battery factories in America. By 2015, there will be 30. The smart grid, $3.4 billion in government investment, led to $4.7 billion in private investment to help get us to a stronger, more efficient, more reliable energy grid. $2.3 billion, which is likely to leverage $5.4 billion in private capital to put us back on track to double our capacity to manufacture the components of a new green economy in America, from wind turbines to solar panels to create energy that's renewable, renewable resources to batteries and smart grid systems to store that and transmit that energy, to technologies like advanced lighting that help conserve energy. We're going to start making that stuff here in America with American workers. We're going to be coming up to you guys in the House and the Senate and asking for 48C to be bumped up to $5 billion so we can be making this stuff in America. And today we're announcing another important Recovery Act program, the Retrofit Ramp-Up. Now, I wonder what sometimes our constituents think when we come up with these names, the Retrofit Ramp-Up. We all in this room know what it is. We may be the only ones who know exactly what it means. But it's a kind of a buzzword, retrofits. But what we're really talking about here is simple. It's about making our homes and our office buildings more efficient and more comfortable and more affordable. Replacing windows and doors. I've visited, along with some of the people in the front row, new window and door factories making incredibly energy efficient windows and doors, which can save billions of dollars over time. Putting in new air conditioning or heating units that are much more efficient. Sealing up cracks and openings where air can leak into and out of your home. That's retrofitting. Small stuff, but big savings. In fact, retrofitting existing homes has the potential to cut more than $21 billion a year annually in our energy cost. There are more than 100 million homes in America. In the last year, only 40,000 took advantage of the energy-saving retrofits. It's not that homeowners don't want to lower their energy bills. It's just that they found that the process was too difficult, from accessing energy audits to finding skilled retrofit workers to simply being able to afford it. Now, last fall, the Middle Class Task Force, which the President asked me to chair, and the Council on Environmental Quality released a report and called the Recovery Retrofit, explaining how we're working to overcome the challenges that got in the way of homeowners taking advantage of this. And these grants that we're announcing today are grants to 25 communities nationwide and are a major step in the direction of making this much easier to do, much more efficient, and much more likely to happen. This program is all about developing innovative models that can be expanded throughout the country. And there are a couple that are particularly important things about these grants that we should mention. First, these grants are focused on encouraging entire neighborhoods to take advantage of the retrofits all at the same time. Right now, most retrofit work programs are on a house-by-house basis. The construction crew may come into a neighborhood, upgrade one home 1 week, and then they have to come back to work in a neighborhood home a few weeks later, maybe in the same neighborhood. Well, the Retrofit Ramp-Up Award winners are taking a different approach. Now that the same construction crew would upgrade all the homes on the same block at the same time. That saves contractors time and money. They can pass the savings on to their customers, and it's just a much more efficient way to operate. And these communities aren't just relying on these grants. They'll use this as seed money to leverage an additional $2.8 billion over the next 3 years. That's a total of $5 for every dollar of grant money. And they're doing this by building partnerships between local governments, utility companies, financial institutions, and nonprofits. Whole communities are coming together to get this going. And when we look around, you'll see it, and you'll see more and more of it as the months go on. I know there are some people from the Philadelphia Mayor's office that are here today. This has been one of the Mayor Nutter's hobby horses. Well, their city has a plan to work with private lenders to connect homeowners to easy access affordable loans to pay for retrofit work. The mayor of Toledo, Mike Bell, is here. Toledo's program will provide career training, job placement, and mentoring for people actually going to be doing this work. The mayor of Phoenix, Phil Gordon, is here. Just talk about partnerships. His city is partnering with Arizona State University, community colleges, local utility companies, and 5 local banks to carry out a comprehensive retrofit program focusing on buildings surrounding Phoenix's new light rail line. Investing in retrofits is a triple win. It's a win for consumers who save money on their energy bill. It's a win for the environment because we're using less energy, which cuts down the harmful emissions from greenhouse gases. And finally, it's a win for the American economy because it creates green jobs, jobs that can't be outsourced. Now, with so many worthy applications, not everyone got funds today. But the Department of Energy is still working to find more opportunities to get cities to get involved in programs like this. But it's not just cities. We also want to encourage millions of Americans across the country to retrofit their homes. That's why the President has made it a priority to pass legislation creating a new energy-efficient rebate program that we call Homestar. And by the way, I was home the last 2 weekends going to Home Depot both times. One, to buy a 30-inch hedge clipper because my wife was very dissatisfied with our hedges. And you all think I'm kidding. I am not kidding. Anyway, and the other one was to take my almost 4-year-old grandson Hunter, who said, "Pop, I don't got a tape measure." So he had to get a tape measure. He's stolen 4 of mine. He can't find them, but way to get another tape measure. But all kidding aside, they asked about the program. The guys working the aisles, the women working the aisles, they asked about the program. Under this program, homeowners will be eligible for rebates worth up to $1,500 for simple home upgrades like replacing an old water heater, putting in those new windows that I talked about. If you decide to do a comprehensive retrofit of your whole house, you'd be eligible for a rebate up to $3,000. Homeowners won't have to fill out forms, send it in the mail, and wait for the check to arrive. They'll get rebates up front from the hardware store or the contractor. The Homestar rebate program is going to create tens of thousands of jobs in industries like construction, manufacturing, and I might add sales. You know, these people, they're going to be people in Home Depot, and I shouldn't just be talking about Home Depot, but, you know, a lot of other places. Lowe's, that's the other one in my neighborhood. Anyway, they're jobs, and people need jobs. There'll be jobs in manufacturing, in all those areas where people have suffered very badly because of this recession. At the same time, we're going to reduce our energy consumption, and families are going to save hundreds of dollars on their utility bills. And that makes a big difference. You know, it's a common sense idea that has bipartisan support. So we're calling on Congress to get this bill on the President's desk as soon as possible. But of course, to really get this right, to really free ourselves from the grip of foreign oil, to really preserve our planet for generations to come, we need a comprehensive energy and climate bill. That's something that Chairman Markey's been working on, and my good friend John Kerry, along with Lindsey Graham and others on the Senate side. I am hopeful. I'm hopeful. We're grateful to the House for passing the bill last year, and I want to thank all the House members. That was not an easy vote at the time to take, but you were dead right. The bill was a good, solid bill. You passed the bill, and we continue working with both Democrats and Republicans to get it passed in the Senate. You know, it's a political cliche to say we're trying to change the world. But you know, in its most literal sense, that's what we're trying to begin to do here today. We got to change the world. Does anybody think we can lead the world in the 21st century with the energy policy we've had? in the last century. Does anybody think we can leave a planet to my grandchildren and their grandchildren that is sustainable without a fundamental change in the way we do business? But this is a case where, as the Secretary pointed out, not just for the United States, but for the world, this can become a win-win situation. You know, it used to be, Ed, when the construction trades and the building trades would support us, when we'd say green, that meant, oh God, the snail darter. We're not going to have a building. We're not going to build a dam. We're not going to. People are beginning to understand. Green means a cleaner economy, and green means jobs green. Green means economic advancement across the board. You know, making the world itself better, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the mountains our children will climb, the lakes they'll swim in. That's why Gaylord Nelson started Earth Day 40 years ago, and that's why you're all here today. And I want to thank you all for helping us literally change the world. So thank you all, folks, and may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Keep it up. Thank you.